First and foremost, I want to say, call halal Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. That's all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God, who the world, and His Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Right, real name Yahweh Shai in the Paleo Hebrew. My name Gubba War, right? Gubba War Gabar, and we're gonna go in a little bit on Sabbath, new moon, right? Some people call it the lunar moon calendar, the lunar Sabbath, this, that, and the third. But really, it's just the Sabbath of the Lord, right? Because simple and plain, and it is really simple, right? But due to intensive like brainwashing and intensive like this is what it is. A lot of our brothers and sisters in Israel, a lot of our brothers and sisters in Israel, they believe that the Sabbath day is on the seventh day of the Gregorian calendar or this Roman calendar that we follow, right? And it's just not, right? It's not. That's not how it works with the Most High. Everything that the Most High gave us to keep, right? He gave us to keep them in their seasons, right? And He gave us feast days to keep in her seasons, right? So I'm just gonna go in on that a little bit today, and Lord willing, I could go more in detail, and go into the doctrines of why they say it can't be, right? The Sabbath based on the new moon. Salaki. Sorry about that, y'all. I work in like real crappy places, right? But this is first off, we're gonna start in the book of Sirach, right? To set down the foundation. This is the book of Ecclesiasticus, better known as Sirach, chapter 43 and verse number 6. He made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. From the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection, right? Meaning going into the new moon, right? It decreases in her perfection. And then what? Um, the month is called after her name. So every month is called after the new moon, right? And it says, the month is called after her name because months go into moon, right? Increasing wonderfully in her changing, being so increasing going back into a quarter moon, half moon, quarter moon, new moon. Increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven, right? So like it says right here, it says from the moon is the verse 7, from the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection, right? Where is Sirach getting this from, right? Jesus, the son of Sirach, where is he getting it from? He getting it from the beginning. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 1 and verse number 14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. So this is how we get our signs, like of the times, for our seasons, what season of the year it is, also what season are we supposed to be having, right? And for days, right? And for days, a month, right, is calculated 30 days, right? So it's telling us we get our days from the moon, right? From the stars, from the firmament, the lights beyond the firmament, right? And in Sirach, it tells us that our feast is based on the moon, right? And the month is called by her name. And it says for days and for years, right? So this is where Sirach got it from. So when we think about it, we like, okay, the Lord gave us these feast days, right? And these different high holy days for us to be that set apart people dedicated unto him, right? So he gave us these feast days for that reason, right? But he also told us how to calculate these feast days. And if you're a Hebrew Israelite out there practicing Hebrew Israelitism, right, you know that all of our feast days is based on the moon. Why would the Sabbath be any different, right? It doesn't make any sense. So we're gonna get where the Sabbath was implemented and see if they say anything about the new moon, right? Because we have to keep the new moon, right? Matter of fact, let's get the new moon, the ordinance of the new moon first. Let me see if I could get this on the whim up in numbers because I didn't put this in my notes. So it says, this is the book of Numbers, chapter 10 and verse number 10. It says, also in the day of your gladness and in your solemn days and in the beginning of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpet over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your power. I am Yahweh, your power, right? So we get the ordinance of the new moon right here, right? It's a celebration. And let's get it in David right quick with David, just so you know y'all can have some verses to go to prove that we're supposed to be keeping this feast day, and also it helps with the explanation of the ordinance of the Sabbath day, right? This is the book of Psalms, chapter 81 from the top, and it says, "Sang aloud unto Elohim our strength, make a joyful noise unto the Elohim of Jacob. Take a psalm and bring here the timbrel, a pleasant harp with the psaltery, and blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. For this was a statute for Israel, and the law of the power Elohim of Jacob. This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony, when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I heard the language, a language that I understood not." Right? So it's telling us that this new moon was put in place, right, with Joseph, right? So, and we see David telling us to blow up the trumpet and celebrate this high holy day. So when we go into the feast days and we go into the scriptures of the feast days, right, we should surely see the new moon because it's a commandment to keep even before Exodus, right? We was commanded to keep this day, right? So let's go to Exodus chapter 16, where the feast day was implemented, where the Sabbath was implemented, right? Let me get my notes just so I'm not fumbling. So this is the book of Exodus, chapter 16, and I believe I want to start at 5, verse 5. "And it shall come to pass that on the sixth day," so we know this is a story about Masha, right, or Moses, teaching the Israelites about the Sabbath day, right? And the Lord saying, "This is how I'm going to prove them to see if they're going to follow my commandments. I'm going to put bread out there, throughout the week. And but on the sixth day, I'm gonna put out twice as much so they could gather, right? Twice as much one day for one day, and then for the Sabbath day. So verse 5, it says, it shall come to pass that on the sixth day they shall prepare that as much they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Dropping down to 21. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. And when the sun waxed hot, it melted. And it came to pass that on the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. Salaki. And it says, and he said unto them, this is that which the Lord Yahweh hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath, right? Is a rest day of the holy Sabbath unto Yahweh. Bake that which you will bake today, and seethe, boil that which you either boil or fry, right? That which ye shall seethe or boil or fry, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. Right. So we see the implication of the Sabbath, right? And part of what we need to be doing. But what we don't see is, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, right? It just says on the sixth day, this is what we need to do. On the sixth day, this is what we need to do, the Sabbath. Right? So let's get it in the book of Exodus, chapter 20. Because surely we should hear, this is the new moon, you know, this is the new moon, this is how you count your days. Right? But we already know that days are counted, right, by the month, because even in Genesis it tells us, right, that the lights in the firmament should be for seasons, for times, for years, for days, right? And signs. So, and in the book of Sirach, chapter 43, and verse number 7, it tells us that the moon is there to appoint the feast days, right? So it tells us, look, this is the book of Exodus, chapter 20, and verse number 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days thou shalt labor and do thy work, right? But on the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, right? So, but what we don't see right here is where they're starting the count, right? And the count starts from the moon. That's why it's not put right here, because Israel already know on the new moon. That's where you start counting your first day, right? So he didn't have to. Moses ain't have to tell him about that, right? It says so. This is Exodus, right? 20 and 8, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. So we're not seeing right on Monday you start counting your 6 days. Right on Tuesday you start counting your 6 days. The Sabbath is Saturday. The Sabbath is Sunday. No, because we wasn't going by any calendar. We was going based off the moon, right? So it's really crazy that all of our feast days are based on the moon, but our Sabbath, which is a feast day, is not. That's really weird. So that's what made me look into this, man. I pray y'all take heed, right, and look into this as well, yourself, right? So then we're gonna go into Leviticus, where it tells us about all our feast days. Right, we're gonna see what it says. If it says anything about the new moon, or what day to start counting to get to the Sabbath. Salakia. This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and verse number 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, right? Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, right? A set apart gathering. Even these are my feasts. And we know that the Bible tells us, right, what the feast or are appointed by the moon, right? That's what we just read in Sirach. I'm gonna read it again before I leave off, right? But Sirach 43 and verse number 7 tells us our feast days are declared by the moon, right? And then we see in Numbers chapter 10, verse 10, and then we see in Psalm chapter 81, verse 1 to verse number 5, that the new moon is the beginning of the month, right? So if it's the beginning, that's where we count from, right? It says, Speak unto the children of Israel, verse 2, Leviticus 23:2. Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be set apart holy gatherings, right? Even these are my feasts, right? Why isn't the new moon mentioned? Check this out. It says 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation, a holy gathering, set apart gathering. Ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord Yahweh in all your dwellings, no matter where you're at, right? So we see that it went straight from telling you about the feast days directly into 6 days, right? But we know that the new moon is a feast day due to Numbers chapter 10, verse 10 on down, and due to Psalms chapter 81, verse 1 through 5. So, and then it doubles down right here, and it says, verse 4, Leviticus 23 and 4, these are the feast of the Lord Yahweh, even holy convocations which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. In Genesis 1:14 and in Sirach 43, verse 5 to 9, 6 to 9, it tells us that the feast days are predicated upon the moon, right? Then we're going to do one better. We're going to get it in Deuteronomy, because surely it should say it in Deuteronomy, right? This, this is how you start your months, right? And this is how you count your days for the Sabbath, is by the new moon. But it doesn't, right? Because it didn't need to be said. Everybody counted their months by the moon, right? So it don't have to be said. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 5, and verse number 12. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work. Why doesn't it say start counting on Sunday for your 6 days? The moon is what implements it. That's how you count your days, right? That's why in Genesis 1 and 14 says that it should be for days and years, signs and times, seasons, right? Simple and plain. So, and when we go to Deuteronomy 16, right, it tells you about the month, right? The beginning of the year and the beginning of the month uh, of the year. It says, this is the book of Deuteronomy 16 and 1. Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God, Yahweh your power. For in the month of Abib, Yahweh thy power brought thee forth out of Egypt by night, right? And that word Abib goes into fresh, young ears, fresh heads, right? Fresh heads of corn, right? And we know the fresh ears or the fresh heads of corn come in on either March or April, right? Depending on if we have two Adars, right? And Adar is just either the 12th month of the year or the 13th month of the year. Sometimes we have 13 months, right? 13 moons. So now that we got that established, the beginning of the year, we based it on crops and seasons, the way that the crops is coming up. That's how we know it's the new year. Like if you was caught in captivity and thrown into the building with no walls and no windows, when they let you out 10 years later, you're going to know just by waiting a couple months. Whenever they throw you out, you're going to know, oh, green ears of corn, fresh ears of corn. Okay, it's a bib, right? And then you'll start counting, right, from that moon, or right before you see the ear of corn, right after you see the ear of corn, whenever that next new moon come in, to start counting to the Passover, right? So if everything is deemed off of the seasons of the herbs and what's growing, and our harvest, feast of harvest is this month because of this. If everything else is based on agriculture, right, or how grow food, grow plants, or is based on the stars and the moons, why is the Sabbath day gonna be any different? It won't be. People just come in under people and they teach them this, right? But the true Sabbath, right, is based upon the moon. And I'm gonna end off one more time on Sirach because I said I would. Right, this is the book of Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 43 and verse number 6. He made the moon also to serve in her seasons for a declaration of time and a sign of the world, which we read in Genesis 1, right, and 16, Genesis 1 and 14. From the moon is the sign of feast. From the moon, we start our feast days. The Sabbath is a feast. The Sabbath starts on the new moon, right? That's why it's called the Shabbat one. That's why the elders call it a Shabbat one. It's because it's actually a Shabbat, but you could do certain things because it's a turn up, right? From the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. Right? The month is called after her name. The moon is called after her name because a month just means moon. Increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. Right? And with that, I pray that y'all get something out of this. Lord willing, you was edified. We're gonna come up with a presentation and show y'all brothers a lot better, right? With the different debates that comes out, about Jesus's birth, when he raised, everything like that. We're gonna do something about that in the near future, right? Where we go into like what they debate about this topic, right? But it's really common sense. And also the feast of Pentecost, right? You count 49 Sabbaths and then 49 days, and then you have the feast of Pentecost. It's not 50 days and then you have the feast of Pentecost. A lot of brothers and sisters have that wrong as well. Once I figured that out, that's what put me on this trail of the new moon. And you cannot persuade me or any other brothers that I deal with otherwise, because the Bible is thus said the Bible. The Sabbath is based upon the moon. And with that, I want to say shalom, peace and blessings to all the family out there, man, the brothers and sisters and children that's keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments. Shalom.